Well, how do you do, Buckaroos? This is Tom the Beer Whisperer, and I am joined by John the Bruguru. I apologize. I sound a little rough. I've been fighting a cold for about a week. I'm about over it. I actually don't feel bad, but the voice sounds terrible tonight. So I made myself some cough medicine, John. Uh, this one, let me grab the bottle here. This one consists of some Crown Royal Northern Harvest Rye. Let me show you that bottle. Combined with some Knob Creek
Yeah,
Oak Maple Bourbon.
a
So
big
I've got
bottle
about
and a little bottle.
I put about a Bavich in there. My Crown Royal glass. That's my homemade cold remedy here.
There you go. Nothing like a hot toddy, right?
Yeah, well, I'm going cold. I got ice, but yeah, toddy would have been the way to go if I
Cold.
had some lemon handy. So,
Cold toddy works too. Yeah.
what are you drinking at the moment, sir?
Well, I've got a Westbrook. I've already had half of this one, but this is their lemon coconut Vice Baby. Uh,
Oh, wow.
it's a variation on their Berliner style Vice Baby with lemon and coconut and vanilla.
And as you speak there, I'm pouring myself the Diamond Bear Oatmeal Stout, 5.8%. I believe it's 25 IBUs on this oatmeal stout. And it pours very nicely, as you can see. And I've even got a Diamond Bear glass, John. And as you know, the best glass to put a beer in is the one with its own logo,
Yep,
as you've stated.
I agree, and that's what I did here. But yeah, that's what I like to do anyway.
So what can you tell me about that beer?
Well, I actually, as a Berliner Weiss, it's good. I'm getting the coconut and the a little bit of the vanilla in the nose, but as you take a sip, they really get drowned out by the tartness of the the Berliner Weiss style, the lactobacillic fermentation, and so I don't know. I'm of two minds about it. I'm enjoying it. It's a great 4%. Easy drinking beer. I just got back from Taco Mac, so I had a few there already. I get the lemon, certainly get the citrusy tart lemon as well, but the coconut and the vanilla, I think, are really drowned out in the palate by the intense sourness of this beer, and it really is sour. So it's good. Hedonistically, I'm really enjoying it, but whenever I see a couple of advertised ingredients and they're kind of like not so much there, that's always a disappointment for me. So.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't want to mention the name of the beer right now, but there's a vanilla something, but you can hardly taste the vanilla. If you're going to use vanilla as the first word to describe it, I want to feel the vanilla all the way through it.
Exactly. And I really love coconut, and I was looking forward to getting some coconut out of this one, and I'm really not.
So being a Berliner Weiss, is that one run about 3.8?
This one's 4%.
4%. Okay. They typically run in that ballpark.
Well, actually, the most of the really authentic ones, like the Schulteis and Berliner Kindelweiss that I've had, those are like 2.5 to 3, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They're really low.
Well, most American craft versions I've had run about 3.8 to 4.
Yeah, I like the fact that they're so refreshing in their intense sourness, but I like the fact also that they're lower in alcohol. Blue Tart Brewery here in Georgia does. They're doing one called Funkweisse, and that one's about 2.5 to 3 as well. So I salute them for doing one that's very authentic, because it's really sour and tart and refreshing, but also about the same ABV as the German versions too. Great beach beer. So
a beer like that, yeah, I was going to say it's a perfect summer beer, perfect picnic or barbecue beer where you can just drink them all day long.
Yeah, the Oldenburg Brewery, which is now defunct, but they were in Fort Mitchell, Kentucky, right outside of Cincinnati. They did a excellent Berliner Weiss, not as tart as a lot of the stuff today, but it had some tartness, and it was about 2.5 to 3%. And back in the 90s, when I was up in Rhode Island, I used to sneak that onto the beach and really enjoy that. So you weren't supposed to have beer, or really, bottled beer was even worse. But I'll tell you what, I used to drink it, and it was nice because you could enjoy it in the hot sun and still go for a swim, and And anybody can tell you if you drink a few normal strength beers, the sun only intensifies the effect of the alcohol. So
Yes, it does. You are absolutely right. Yeah.
a dehydration thing going on.
Well, this is an oatmeal stout. I mean, and it does what an oatmeal stout does. I mean, the nose is a whole lot of oatmeal. There's this one I had before when I did a video for it, and I'm feeling it again. I'm getting almost these dark brown sugar, like a muscovado brown sugar kind of note with it.
Yum.
And who doesn't love oatmeal and brown sugar?
Everybody loves oatmeal and brown sugar. So,
So, John, should we talk about football?
yeah, we could talk about football for
You
sure.
had a rough week last week.
Well, no, it's not really a rough week. You know, it's part of the game. I mean, everybody knows, or they probably can tell, or should be able to, with Tom Brady right behind me there, that I'm a big Pats fan. But we won the.
That's why I brought it up. It's
Yeah.
kind of rubbing a little salt.
Well, we won the Super Bowl last year, and that was a great,
Yes, you did.
fantastic season. And we had another great year this year. You know, the Pats. We had a stretch. We won the first 10 games, and injuries took their toll. And Denver's defense was, great. I mean, I think everybody talked about this being another Manning Brady matchup, but it really wasn't, because Brady and Manning were both pretty much taken out of the game by the defenses. It was the battle.
It was a lot. Yeah, you're right.
Battle of two defenses, and kudos to the Broncos. They beat us, and they're going on to the Panthers. I really think it's the Panthers' year. I think had we won, we would have had. I don't know that we could have beat the Panthers, and the same is true with the Broncos. It's just the way it goes. So,
well, that answers this question. I was going to say, if do you give a rat's ass who wins this one?
No, I mean, I'll be honest. I'm a Pats fan, and really the only football I'm interested in watching is the Patriots, my team. I've been a Pats fan since '78, so I'm sure it'll be a great game. But I don't have a dog in the fight. I mean, it doesn't matter to me which team wins, because I only root for one, and that's the Pats. So.
Well, I've been a life Rams fan, so I've
So what do you think about him moving to L.A.?
I've undergone a lot of pain. You know what? I actually like it, because that's where they belong.
Okay.
So it doesn't bother me. I mean, I didn't become a Rams fan when they moved to St. Louis. I was always one in L when they were in L, and I didn't change. Even when they were still in LA, I was a Rams fan. They happened to move to St. Louis. I'm in Springfield mode, so it was handy. But I mean, I never changed teams. I mean, I had a Roman Gabriel jersey he was 4. So, I mean, I'm a lifelong guy. I'm a Dodger fan. I'm a Rams fan. I'm a Lakers guy. So, I mean, I haven't lived out there since '89, but I'm all about loyalty, man. I always say anybody can root for a winning team. It takes a real fan to root for a team is 4-12 every damn year.
Well, it won't be every year, because I mean, I get all that all the time. The Pats have been tough for the last 15 years, but
yeah,
let me tell you, there's been a lot of seasons that I've been following them where they sucked, and that's true of every team. You never know when it's going to be your year, so you got to stick with them. And to your point too about the moving, I don't know, a lot of people don't probably remember this, but before Bob Kraft bought the team, there was a member of the Anheuser-Busch family that bought the Patriots. And
I didn't do that.
Yeah, and he was talking about moving them to. His goal was to move them to St. Louis, and there was a huge boycott organized in New England, and basically Pats fans were like, if the Patriots are moved out of New England to St. Louis, we will not drink another drop of Budweiser as long as we live. And, I mean, you're not talking about just craft beer drinkers. You're talking about hardcore Bud drinkers, and they weren't going to touch this stuff. And basically the rest of the family just told him, I wish I could remember the guy's name, but he was under, they made it clear in no uncertain terms that there was going to be no move of the Patriots out to St. Louis. So. And then the Rams ended up getting moved out there. So
yeah, the Rams. At one time, LA had the Rams and the Ravens, but LA got a little football on them. Rams wanted a stadium. LA wasn't going to build one, so they ended up going to St. Louis. And of course, the one Super Bowl the Rams have was in St. Louis. So I get a little frustrated with some of these St. Louis. I want to piss and moan and bag on the Rams. Talk about them being a losing team. Well, but this is the team that brought your city a Super Bowl. So how about you just shut the fuck up?
Yep. Well, there's you've got those. Some states have an abundance of teams, and California at that point was one of them. They had Oakland, San Francisco, and LA, and Florida now has, but they got Tampa, they got Jacksonville, and Miami, and some people say New York has 3 teams with Buffalo, but I really think that New Jersey has the Jets and the Giants. That's where they play. So I don't really believe that much, but
that's kind of messed up.
Yeah, but anyway.
Well, that irritates me. You talk about teams. Baseball, Angels actually play in Anaheim, and they actually won the World Series as the Anaheim Angels, and then the Los Angeles Angels, but they still Anaheim. To me, that's a whole lot of bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when I grew up, they were just the California Angels. They weren't, but
originally when they first came out, they were the Los Angeles Angels, but for the longest time, they were the California Angels. But then they adopted the Anaheim moniker because they actually play in Anaheim, and they won the World Series as the Anaheim Angels. So I don't know why they changed after they won the World Series, but they did.
You had the Oakland A's, you had the San Francisco Giants, so there's another the Dodgers. They actually had 4 teams, right? So, but
Dodgers in LA, yeah. I mean, I've always been a Dodger fan. I mean, from the day I was old enough to watch. I'm mostly a baseball guy. I do watch baseball, but I don't even take baseball that serious anymore, to be honest with you. But I've always been more of a baseball guy.
Well, I was a big baseball fan as a kid. I was a huge Red Sox fan, and I hated Bodie Kuhn. I don't know if you remember the old
Bodie Kuhn. Yeah, what a dick.
Because the Angels traded. Now the frickin' Yankees had been buying players up left and right and trading and building the team, and Oakland traded Raleigh Fingers and Greg Lazinski was his name, I think.
Greg Lazinski?
Yeah, they were 2 great players, and they traded him to the Red Sox. And he nixed the deal because he said it would be, I was a kid. I was probably like 12 or 13. And I loved the Red Sox. Never missed a game. Either watched it or listened to it. I don't have the time for that today, so I just don't miss any Pats games today, but that's easier to do. But he said it would be bad for the sport, so he stopped the deal. And I'm, my dad was mad and I was mad and everybody in Boston because, what the hell have the Yankees been doing for the last 4 or 5 years, but anyway.
Yeah. Hey, I'm not getting it every time, but every once in a while you'll move and I'll get a lot of static. I can hear you, but I'm getting some static, but it doesn't happen every time.
Okay.
I'm not sure where it's coming from.
It's odd. Well,
of course I can't talk because my voice is like static. It doesn't. Sometimes when I get real sick, my voice goes a completely different direction, and I sound like Winnie the Pooh. I shit you not.
Now that would be something I would like to say.
I sound just like Sterling Holloway. I shit you not. My wife would say I'd feel sorry for you if it didn't sound like Winnie the Pooh.
You could make some money off that, I'm sure.
Oh, shoot. So that brings me to my next now. With football season just about over, we got the Super Bowl coming up. You just mentioned you don't really follow baseball that close.
No, used to, but I just to be honest with you, what turned me off from baseball was the strikes back in the early to mid '80s, and then in the '90s, and I don't know. It was. I'll give this to football. They had strikes at one point, but they had the replacement players, and at least they made it look a little fun. In either case.
Yeah. We're going to have to agree to disagree on this point because football has had many strikes as well. I think it just depends on what sport you like. But the bag on baseball for the strike seems unfair to me because football has been ridiculous as well with the strikes.
Well, they haven't had as many, though. They've only had a few. And like I said, they had the replacement players come in. Some people call them scabs, but
yeah.
Here's the thing for me.
Well, they were scabs.
Well, no, they weren't.
Across the sign, you're a scab. That's just the way it is, man.
No, I don't agree. I won't cross. If you're a working man and you're in a union and you're making decent money, or not making decent money but trying to, I won't cross the picket line. But when you're a sports star and you're making millions of dollars a year and you're going on strike, while the people that are trying, to go see the games are struggling to come up with $100 a ticket or whatever, that ain't the same thing. I don't think that the sports unions are nothing like a normal union. In a normal union, everybody, if a sports union was like a normal union, every shortstop, every pitcher, every quarterback would make the same amount of money, right? Because in a union, right, every pipe fitter, every plumber, every electrician would start out in the same way.
They start out at the same money. But here's where I disagree.
It don't work that way in sports. It's totally different, Tom. They call it a union.
Yeah, but here's what I disagree with you. You talk about the price of the ticket. It's the owners. It's the owners that dictate the price of the ticket.
Yeah, I agree. The owners are part of it too, but the player.
So when you're talking about somebody, they like when a strike happens, they want to focus the blame on the players, and everybody wants to blame the players for making this crazy amount of money. You have to blame the owners for doing it in the first place.
Well, no, I think I still believe it's a two-way street. The players make a ton.
Well, it is. I'm just saying the blame usually falls on the players. You have to focus on the owners too.
I think it's
the owners that are charging the money for the seats, not the player.
Yeah, but the player salaries drive part of that too. I mean, that's a huge expense of they make a ton of money, and again, if every quarterback made the same amount of money, then I would look at it differently. But they don't. They don't bargain collectively. They bargain individually, and that's not a union. So the union may represent them on general terms, but I think for the most, and I think that the fans want to see the players. The fans don't go to the games to see the owners. So I agree with you there. But at the same time, the fans, they can only pay so much money, and if you're making all that money and you go on strike, and I think this is a lot more true of baseball. The average salary in football is much lower than it is in baseball. They get beat up. Half of them end up with concussions and CTE and these problems. Baseball to me is different because they don't have that, and these guys play. They want $20 million.
I'm not really going to disagree because football is a rubber sport when you're talking about games. Baseball runs 162. Well, you may not have actual contact. You have longer wear on your body. A whole other set of problems. So I think it's just physically, if not even more so, strenuous on the body.
But as a rule, they make a lot more money because they can play longer, and they get more per year. Basketball too, right?
Well, I don't think the average length is that much longer. I mean, last I heard, the average baseball player was 8, and football was about 6. The last study I saw. So I don't think the longevity is that much different.
Okay, I think. Well, maybe that's true. That may be a fair point, but I still think they make, they get more per year, and I think the statistics show that in the long run they've got more money.
Hey, John, hold on just a second. I got to pause my mic for.
You sure?
Sorry about that. I muted my backdrop, but then the back on, so I had to find a thing to mute it again. And my wife was arguing with me about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm playing Home Alone right now. My wife is in Nashville. So.
No, it's funny though. When we do these pub segments, these pub sessions, I think a lot of folks want, or I think originally thought we were just going to talk about beer, or talk about whiskey, or talk about something. But we talk about what we're going to talk about in a pub. I mean, if you and I were in a pub tonight, we could have this exact same discussion, and that's okay. That's what we do in a pub, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I go to Taco Mac all the time to have a beer and maybe have a meal. And during football season, if the Patriots aren't on TV, then I'm going to go to Taco Mac and watch the game. And I can tell you that, a lot of the conversations are not about beer; they're about football. So that's what.
As
That's what
a beer geek, naturally, we always talk about the first beer we're drinking, but then it becomes about something else. I think that's one thing that I kind of find tedious about beer reviews. You get some beer reviews I watch run to 10 to 20 minutes. I'm thinking, do I really want to hear 20 minutes about one single beer without hearing about something else?
Yeah, I think the length of a video review shouldn't be more than like 10 minutes max. That's where I start to lose.
Well, if you're just doing a review and not doing any commentary, yeah, it just kind of loses something. But that's what I like about this format that we started doing, is that we can talk about whatever we want to, because we're in a virtual pub here.
That's it. Like I said, you don't go to the pub and just talk about beer. You talk about, I've run into people and we talk about football. We talk about local politics. We talk about all kinds of stuff because they're running into local people at Taco Mac. I'll never forget the time that I was there watching a Patriots game, and a gal came in and sat next to me, and she was watching the Falcons and I was watching the Pats, and she just turned to me and they were getting their ass beat and Pats were winning. She's like, "Don't you ever get tired of them winning?" I'm like, "Not really, no." And I come home and told my wife that story, and she's like, "What the hell are you doing talking to a woman at a bar?" So
that's funny.
But that's the kind of stuff that happens in the pub, Tom. It is about the beer.
Speaking of, I just opened a new beer because actually that was my first drink and beer of the night, so I'm trying to catch up to you. Since you mentioned you had a couple of Taco Macs, so I started with another one from Arkansas. I'm doing just Arkansas oatmeal stouts. Actually, the Diamond Beers from Little Rock, or North Little Rock specific. This one's out of Springdale, Arkansas, Core Brewery. This one is 6%, 30 IBUs. It's very similar. I've had it before, and the aromas and flavors are very similar. It's just maybe amplified a touch. It's a little sweeter on the nose. I'm getting, whereas on the other one I mentioned brown sugar, here I'm feeling more maple-like notes. Oh, mercy. So are you still drinking the Berliner Weiss?
I'm still working that Berliner Weiss, yep. When I was at Taco Mac, I had a 20-ounce mug of the Rogue Fresh Farms brown ale, fresh roast brown ale, which is part of the Rogue Farm series, and that was pretty good. And then I had a Lagunitas IPA, which is always delicious and a bargain at $4.75, and then I had a 11-ounce glass of the Reformation Winter Scout Stout. So, and I popped this when I got home. So.
Yeah, one of these days I got to get up there to hit that Taco Mac with you. That sounds like a lot of fun to me.
Yeah, you'd like it. I can tell you. There's ours has there's about, I want to say 27, 28 in Georgia. There's a couple in up near Charlotte. There's one in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So they're kind of like expanding past Georgia, but every one of them's got at least 100 beers on tap. So,
wow.
This one is 2.5 miles from my house, so very convenient for me. But
when I was spending so much time up in St. Louis, one of my favorite places to go was Nick's Pub, because Nick's, I can't remember the exact number of beers they had on tap, but they like to showcase craft beers. So over half of their taps were dedicated to Missouri. So they would carry all the St. Louis craft beers, plus a lot of a lot of the neighboring suburbs, Augusta and O'Fallon and then they have some from my neck of the woods. So it's nice that they had a lot of craft beers, but they had so many, local. So I mean, if you were a guy from out of town and you wanted to sample a lot of just St. Louis stuff, you want to only hit one spot, Nick's is a perfect place. And they had a couple of pint nights. One pint night was just Missouri pints for $2. They have another pint night where premium pints for $3. So I mean, these are great bargains.
Wow, that is a good deal. The one thing about Taco Mac is the prices are probably a little bit higher than you would normally pay at other establishments. But I don't. You know what? I've been to other bars, and they're not way out of whack. Thursday nights they have pint glass night, so you get a free pint glass of whatever the brewery of the month is if you buy one of their beers. So that you get 4 for whatever the month. You know, the brewery of the month. They'll have a different glass for 4 nights. So that's nice, and they do the same thing as far as featuring local breweries. In fact, they've really done a lot for small craft brewers in Georgia that only do draft because, you know, Taco Mac will buy a lot of their beer, and the front page of the draft list is where they put all the Georgia beers. So you'll see.
That's nice. That's very nice.
They'll have 20.
If I was a guy traveling from out of town, that's a start.
Yeah, that's there's like 20 to 30 local beers, and they'll do tap takeovers, which are like not really tap takeovers. You can't take over 100 taps, but you know, they'll when they do it that they'll have a local brewery and they'll do 5 or 6 or 7 of their beers. They've done it for some of the small beers from North Georgia. So small brewers. Like I lost your video.
Oh, I'm back. Hold on. Well, hold on. There we go. I was having a technical difficulty for a second.
Please stand.
I'm back. All right.
Yeah, so
I just scratched my nose and didn't want to do it on camera.
No problem. But
big ass nose, right? I got this big nose and I've been fighting a cold, and it just itches all the time. And then that, and the fact I have Tourette's, which makes me want to scratch my nose. Yeah. So I get people commenting on my videos that I'm always scratching my, and I just can't help it. Damn it.
Mine twitches, and I'm constantly.
So every once in a while, I'll switch the camera off so I can scratch my freaking nose. Anyways, yeah. So now that we've gone off track here, oh, I had a see. My finger twitched when I hit off camera and went back up. Anyway, so I got this big nose. This, you know, everybody has these family traits. This is the Mobile nose. This is the family nose. It's the big nose that spreads out through half of your face. Well, one of the traits I got from my dad.
Well, that's a good thing. That comes from heredity.
It has character, do it not?
There you go. It's distinctive.
So anyways, now that we've digressed, no, this is a good oatmeal stout. I like it. Core does some great stuff out there. Not long ago, I had their Old Grumpy barley wine. You know, it's funny is you talk about craft beer towns, and people want to look at the East Coast or the West Coast, but the Midwest is really getting some great breweries that kind of get overlooked.
Well, the Midwest has had great breweries. Even, you know, I remember back into the 90s, our good friend, you know, the Red Rooster there, bringing back Sprecher.
Yeah.
And they've had so they've got some long-standing breweries. If you think of Leinenkugel's out there, and then
yeah,
you know, they're Stevens Point, and you know, those are some of the regional breweries and craft breweries.
But as far as my neck, because it's really been the last 5 years, to be honest with you, that St. Louis has just exploded. I mean, it was really about 2011 when the things just got nuts over there. And it was right about the time of the AB InBev buyout.
Yeah, they were.
Brewers got laid off or just decided to part ways, and they just created this big craft beer culture in St. Louis. That just got crazy. But and recently the same thing happened in Little Rock, Arkansas. All of a sudden, there's great breweries popping up there. Springdale has got Core and Saddlebach. A couple weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago now, I had Ozarks Brew Company in Rogers. I don't, you know, it's funny though, you talk about people traveling, nobody hits those towns on purpose. But if you happen to be traveling or driving, I mean, these are great breweries to hit.
Well, Boulevard's been there since the 90s, right? They've been there for a while.
Boulevard's been now Boulevard, I think, popped up in about 89, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I remember hearing about their beers in the 90s, but we couldn't get them.
But now they're owned by one of the big guys too.
Well, yeah, but they're one of the benevolent big guys. They're owned by the Belgian same Belgian brewery that owns Affligem. Yeah, is it Affligem or? But I know they own Omega in New York.
I believe. Is it Duval?
Yeah, you're right. That's right. but they've not degraded the quality of Omegang, that's for sure. So,
Well, I also, the one thing I've noticed, I mean, I don't know if it's just maybe I'm noticing it, but it seems that now they're getting more of a Belgian influence on a lot of their styles.
well, I've got a few. I picked up their is it their their winter beer. I haven't popped it yet with the not the Nutcracker. I've had that. I had some of that this year, but there's another one like with a sweater on it or something that they released this year.
I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah, bought that. That was Boulevard. I got just the other day. I picked up the early riser, which is like a coffee porter.
Oh yeah, I heard that one was coming out, but I hadn't found it yet.
Yep. So I've got a few of their beers still to try, and then there was a specialty beer that I got from them too at Total Wine the other day. But I don't know. I haven't noticed the Belgian Omegang always had the Belgian influence, so I can't say that they've. Of course, if you're going to be corrupted with Belgian influence, there's nothing better to be corrupted with.
No, yeah, no, well, I've always said, well, I've mentioned upon occasion that usually a lot of times what happens when a big guy buys a craft brewery, sometimes you lose quality, but sometimes you just lose creativity. Seems like the opposite has happened with the Boulevard thing.
Yeah. And again, that might be because of the company that bought them. We talked about this before, I think, in the last session, but I really don't believe that I don't think the big brewers can buy the micros and stifle their creativity and try and blandify their beer because they buy them because they're selling beer, and if they do that, if they change the formula, they're not going to sell beer, and so you've pretty much blown your investment. Why would you buy them to put them out of business? And that's actually a common practice in business, but you can't do it with craft breweries because with craft breweries it's like whack-a-mole. If you buy Breckenridge like AB did, and then you blandify their beer and nobody buys it anymore, then 10 small micros or nanos are going to pop up and start taking their place. People aren't going to.
Yeah, but let me ask you a question though. Can't you dumb it down? I mean, like for instance, in Leinenkugel's, that's a great example. I mean, amongst serious craft beer drinkers, most craft beer drinkers won't get near a Leinenkugel's, but macro drinkers will grab a Leinenkugel's as their good beer for the weekend.
Yeah, they will, but I don't think Miller ever dumbed down Leinenkugel's. Leinenkugel's was never a Founders or Ballast Point just got bought out by a distributor from New York that has rights to some Mexican Corona. They have the rights to distribute Corona and such here in the U.S., but Leinenkugel's was never making beers, in my experience, at that level anyway. If anything, they with the Big Eddie series, they're making bigger and bolder beers than they did in years past. So people forget too that in the 90s, Miller put out their Reserve series. They had a fantastic.
You're right. Yeah, I've had that same discussion with folks. You're absolutely right.
I don't think they buy the breweries to do that. It's not a winning strategy. It's more a waste of money. You can't you can't win because. If I drink,
you talk about Goose Island, for instance. I mean, most craft beer drinkers on social media. You watch social media, and if you post a Goose Island beer, you get hammered up until the Bourbon County Stout comes out. Then all of a sudden, everybody waits 4 hours in line to get one. So all of a sudden, you got all year long you're being told you're evil for buying a Goose Island, and then all of a sudden the craft beer hypocrisy shows its ugly head.
And that is hypocrisy. If you don't drink any of their beers and you just object to the putting money in the pockets of the big brewers, I understand that. But by the other token, this is going to happen. Big brewers are going to buy small breweries.
This is what's going to happen. You're exactly right. So I got a discussion the other day. I don't know if you saw the video. I did a pub session with John Sharon, and we kind of had a little bit of a disagreement. He made a good point, though, but I disagreed with him a little bit on principle, is that he was saying a lot of these breweries start up in the hopes of having that golden ticket. It's the buy to sell mentality. and or open to sell or build to sell. And I disagreed. I said I don't disagree that that may happen upon occasion, but if you're telling me that most craft brewers are hoping to someday sell out to a craft brewer for a lot of money, I disagree with you.
Yeah, I don't think that's why they go into the business. You can't
I
look.
mean, you had a valid point, but I don't know if it was 100% correct.
What a balance. Well, I don't think that's the reason that, I mean, they're like anybody else. They want to go and make money. I mean, they
Well,
work.
I mean, it is a business, but I mean,
A lot of
my argument was by using that reasoning. What you're saying is everybody that opens a mom and pop restaurant wants to sell to a conglomerate. No, so some of these folks, I've talked to so many brewers, so many craft breweries. A lot of these guys are in it for the love of the beer. Of course, they have to make money. It's about making money, but you start it for the love of the beer. It's not about having a golden ticket. So I kind of resented that line a little bit.
Well, I'll tell you, but most of the brewers that I've met, a lot of them were started as home brewers, so they love making beer, and they go into it for the love of the craft. They want to make money too. I don't know about you, but when I go to work every day, I expect to get paid for it, right?
You want to get paid.
You can't blame the brewer for. Here's a good story, and this is one that when I worked at Max Liquors, this was back in the '90s, and I used to sell craft beer there. And the guy that owned it was a great guy, and he hired me because I knew about. He was a wine geek, but he didn't know much about beer, so he sold wine and hired me because I knew a lot about beer. And there was one guy that came in. This guy had a job making good money. He loved craft beer, but he wouldn't buy the damn stuff because he said, nah, it's too expensive, and he'd walk out with a 15-pack of Strohs every night, Every now and then he'd buy a 6-pack of something good. But it bothered me to no end because I thought, you've got a good job, you make plenty of money, and you don't want the brewer to make a goddamn penny because you want to buy the cheap shit because you don't want to spend the money. Well, the brewer needs to get paid for his work too. And I'm on record all the time about complaining about high prices of craft beer, but reasonable prices, hey, like I said, they go into it because they love beer, but they got a right to expect that they can make a living off of it too.
Yeah, and a lot of it's how you drink, isn't it, John? I mean, you and I are pretty close to the same age. At 21, we drank differently than we do right now. So, at 21, you're buying that 30-pack kind of beer. But at 50, it's more about, enjoying the beer. And I like to liken it to traveling, right? When you're a young guy, you want to get to that destination. And as an older guy, I want to stop and sightsee and look at that large ball of twine on the side of the road. You know what I mean? We want to have that good craft beer. We could just take slow drinks and relax instead of buying a 30. We buy a nice 6-pack and enjoy the scenery along the way.
Yeah, that's the way. One way to look at it. I can't drink as much as I did. I got to say, in my early to mid 20s, I was still drinking in quantity, but I was looking for the quality too. I was in love with craft beer, and I wanted to drink as many different ones. But also, there was a lot of beers that I really enjoyed, back in the mid to late 80s. Hope Lager was one of the first Rhode Island craft brewers. They never opened a brewery, but Sam Adams, lots of beers all over New England, Nutfield in New Hampshire, and Geary's in Maine, and, Magic Hat, and all those great breweries. And I was drinking lots of their beer. But you're right. Now it's even more so where you're looking for, something that's really going to satisfy you. Because you can't drink as many as you did when you were young. But
now, when I was 22, I moved to Washington State. It was the first time I'd had a Red Hook, and I've talked about this a million times. But it's the first time I'd had a rye beer. They used to have this rye hook, a Red Hook rye. They call it rye hook.
Yeah.
And I was mostly, a macro drinker. In fact, all the taps out there, they had a Rainier on it. They sold it for $1 a pint. So that's what I drank 90% of the time. But when I first got my paycheck, every week I'd go buy at least a 6 of that Red Hook rye to drink at home. That was just the greatest beer I'd ever had, in my young beer drinking life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think we all have. I used to love Anchor beers, but they were even back in the
me too.
80s.
Yep.
They were like $9 a 6-pack in Rhode Island, and in those days that was more than I could. It was an occasional treat, but But Hope was cheaper and still a great beer. I remember drinking Guinness, a lot of Guinness in those days. Bass Ale, I would drink tons of Bass on
Oh,
draft.
yeah, I love Bass. Oh, did you get Watney's back in your neck of the woods? Watney's Red Barrel.
Red Barrel. Oh, and the Watney's Cream Stout. The Cream Stout.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow, that's awesome.
I used to be honest, I used to drink Cream Stout by the case. That stuff was amazing. I used to, and then they stopped importing it, and I was so bummed. Pete's Wicked Ale, the earliest.
Oh yeah,
was fantastic. A lot of good stuff, but you know,
now we're reminiscing.
Those were the.
You know, if we were actually in a pub, we'd be having a man hug right now. I'm almost to the end of my beer here. We've been talking just about 45 minutes, so I'm going to end this session. But John, you want to party words?
No, it just again, it's always fun. I love the format, Tom. It's great, and the free form discussion and enjoying a beer are fantastic. So thanks for starting this idea. It's great. So.
Well, we all love craft beer, but we don't want to talk just about craft beer because that makes us one-dimensional. So, hey, I want to thank the Bruguru, who I've mentioned before is one of my favorite beer writers out there. If you haven't checked out his website, you need to. It's brewguru.com, right?
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Thanks, Tom.
So, hey, thanks, John, for joining me. I'm not the Brew Guru. He's the Brew Guru. I might have had too much to drink. I'm Tom the Beer Wizard, and we're out of here.
Thanks, Tom.